every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
You need the right people in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you have the right people in the right place, but at the wrong time.
I've got to keep going forward. I've got to keep looking for revenue streams. I've got to keep looking for growth, keep looking at new ways of doing things.
But, you know, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling a business is not necessarily that easy. If it were, we wouldn't have the vast majority of businesses remaining below 10 employees. However, there are some sound principles of successfully scaling a business, and the really good news is that those principles are intrinsically linked with building a valuable business. So that means that if we're building a scalable business, then we're also building a valuable business. If you'd like to understand more about those principles and access a range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey, then why not take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk. That's BizSmarts, BIZSMARTS.
Hello, I'm Granger Forson, and welcome to ScaleUp Radio. Kevin is away at the moment, so he's asked me to introduce this episode where he speaks to Simon O Gorman, the owner of Adept IT. Adept IT has been running since 2001, but Simon only took over the business in 2021 after family circumstances put him in touch with the owner, Martin, which led to a conversation about the business being up for sale. In fact, one of the aspects of this conversation is Kevin talking to Simon about the process of acquiring Adept IT. It's a fascinating look at what goes into the acquisition and some of the challenges that Simon faced. There's quite a lot else in this conversation between Kevin and Simon, and it includes ensuring that every client feels unique to your business. They should feel that they aren't treated like just another client. Why acquiring a business is not something that you should just decide to do. Do your homework and make sure you have a good network of people around you who have experience, especially lawyers. And how you go about pushing your team in their work without pushing them too far or not pushing them far enough. It's a great conversation, and it was good to hear Simon to be open and honest about acquiring Adept IT and talk about some of the things that didn't go quite to plan, as well as those things that went really well. It won't matter how long you've been a business owner, which industry you're in, or where you are on your scale-up journey. You'll definitely find some value in this episode. So let's go over and hear from Simon and Kevin.
Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm here with Simon O Gorman, who is the owner of Adept IT. Simon, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning. It's good to be here.
Yeah, fantastic to have you on. So Adept IT, tell us, what's that all about?
Yeah, so Adept IT is a business that's actually been running since 2001. Myself and my wife, Jane, we bought it back in the middle of last year, and we took over the business in June. Adept IT is a specialist IT provider for people with disabilities. So we're very much focused on assistive technology, and we kind of pride ourselves on making IT accessible for all. So people are probably thinking, well, what does that mean? What's assistive technology? Well, you know, as a regular person that doesn't have a disability, you'll use a mouse, or you'll use a touch pad, or a touch screen. A lot of the people that we deal with, you know, if they have a physical disability or a neuro disability, some of the input devices or the software we use isn't suitable for their particular requirements. So we provide specialist input devices such as switches, such as joysticks. You know, if we go to the extreme, we have specialist equipment which enables people to sort of use their head for moving mice, etc. And then we've got the specialist side of software. And, you know, people have seen all of the assistants that you have now, the Google Assistants, the Alexas. Well, we use software such as Nuance Dragon, which goes that step further. It enables you to control the entire interface of the computer, be able to do all the dictation, and it enables for a lot more collaboration and things using your voice. So, we basically make computers more accessible.
Sounds absolutely amazing. And can you give us a feel for the size of the business? What does it look like from a people point of view, and maybe customers? What sort of idea of size?
Yeah, sure. So we're a small company. There's only 3 of us. So as I said, there's myself, my wife Jane, and we've also got an employee, Jess, who came to us from a Kickstart scheme run by DWP. With regards to our client base, I would suggest that probably 80% of our business is currently business to business. So, you will have seen in the news recently with regards to the Valuable 500, people making the workplace more accessible. We're very much focusing on that with regards to what do people need in order to be able to do what everybody needs to do, and that's be able to access the workplace. But we also have the other 20%, which are individuals. We have people with things like cerebral palsy, where they need a lot more assistance to be able to access the things we enjoy, like social media, things like gaming, and we provide them with the complete solution. We're still very embryonic, even though the business has been going since 2001. It was hit very hard by COVID because obviously a lot of people's priorities were diverted and were changed. And we're now starting to build that back up.
Is it a very competitive market? What makes you different within the marketplace?
Yeah, I think the provision of product is very competitive. So you've got, even down to Amazon, Ingram Micro in a more commercial sense would be big competitors because they sell what we sell with regards to specialist Meister switches and things like that. Where we really differ is we provide a complete service. So from somebody giving us a call and going, look, we have no idea what we could have access to, what the best capabilities are for my particular condition, how can you help? And we'll go in, we'll do a full assessment up front. And, the assessment will be simple things such as observing the user, understanding their condition, seeing how it affects things like their movement or the way that they engage with people on a sort of neuro perspective, right the way down to, well, okay, how do we make the equipment accessible, whether that's on a motorized wheelchair or whether that's on a desk. And then we build the entire solution around them as part of that assessment. And then that enables us to then make recommendations. Well, this is good for you. We thought this would, but actually this isn't. And then we work with them to develop almost a bill of materials.
Okay.
And then we then go through the procurement and then we deliver it. We set it up. We provide them with the training they need, and then we support that through life, whatever that through life support needs to be for that particular individual. From a company perspective, again, slightly different in the sense that we do the assessment, but most of it tends to be more, desk assessments, looking at where their monitors are, what they have access to, the input devices they're using, and advising not only the end user of what they can have, but also the managers, making them aware of what assistive technology is, how it can help them achieve what they need to as a business and things like that. So slightly different, but still has the same aim of getting it accessible for people with disabilities.
So it sounds quite involved and time intensive from your aspect. So how does that work from a business model point of view? How do you make money?
Yeah, so I have to say we're quite lucky in the sense that the market isn't as price sensitive. I mean, everybody's always going to be sensitive to price in a certain extent, but a lot of the people that we deal with have grants and things that enable them to do that. And because of the fact that it is very labor intensive and it needs a lot of my time or a lot of my team's time, obviously the price associated with that kind of sets itself. But also, and with the way COVID has gone, being able to do things remotely has also become more prevalent within the marketplace, whereas previously it was very much around assessments face-to-face, traveling, being on site with the person for generally an entire day. There are certain things that we can now do remotely. So for instance, we tend to now get our clients to provide us with video. And then we also have online, either through Zoom or FaceTime or Google Meet Me, you know, we actually see the person virtually. And there are a lot of techniques and things that enable us to be able to do on-screen measurement as well, which we haven't used before. So, you know, being able to understand the size of the wheelchair or the size of the desk is as simple as just drawing on the screen, and you know, the iPad or the computer tells us what the dimensions are. From that we can look at the equipment and we can have a much more interactive assessment. And of course that has benefits all around. One, it makes it a lot cheaper for the end user because you haven't got all that travel, and it makes it more efficient for us, which means we can actually deal with a lot more clients as well, which is opening up a much wider marketplace while being able to reduce overheads and things, and it enables us to be able to build our team gradually rather than having this much bigger upfront cost of having all the staff waiting for those assessments to come in.
Interesting. So you've got kind of three separate revenue streams in a way there. You've got the consulting piece, the upfront audit and the consulting bit. Then you've got presumably the product itself and the transactional side of the product, and then the ongoing support. Is that how you split it, or do you package it all up? How do you make that work?
No, that's pretty much exactly how we split it up, because there are instances. So for instance, we do have a specialist that works for us that does expert witness. So if somebody's involved in an accident or they've had something later in life which is involved, you know, a legal trial or something like that, the assessments are done as part of that, and they may not buy the equipment from us because of conflict of interest and things like that. We do still have quite a large presence online where people will come to us just to buy a mouse or a switch or you know, some gaming equipment and things like that. And not everybody takes the through life support. We are finding actually more and more that when we sell the computers, we do get that through life support as well, because carers and things don't tend to be IT experts and they want it to just work. And more of the people that we deal with tend to be in a care home or a place where they're getting around the clock care. So giving that peace of mind is absolutely something that people want. And for whatever reason, that isn't a model that's been out there. You know, people will get a complete system or they'll get the assessment, but nobody's actually provided that complete solution set. And that's kind of the gap that we're filling at the moment.
Very good. So you mentioned that you bought into the business just about a year ago. So what made you decide to do that, to get into this particular sector?
Yeah, well, we kind of fell into it, actually. So I'm a cybersecurity specialist by profession, and that's what I've done. I've always engaged with IT, and I've always worked on the premise that, you know, security is there to make sure that people can do what they want to do and remain secure. But my father-in-law fell ill with Parkinson's. And throughout his condition, and as that condition progressed, he needed more and more support. But then COVID hit, and we couldn't go and see him so much because he had his carers, and we had to provide that. But his way of keeping in contact with my wife Jane and her sister and brother was through social media and through Zoom and FaceTime and things like that. Mm-hmm. Well, as I'm sure you're aware, Parkinson's does affect the hands. You get tremors, and even though medication has come amazingly, you can't get rid of that. And we knew nothing about that. He said, well, I'm having difficulty with my mouse now. And it was kind of, well, and through research, we found out a lot about these capabilities. And we just happened to come across Martin Sliper, who was the proprietor and is actually an expert and well-known in this sort of arena. And the way we got in contact with him is while we were searching assistive technology, his business came up as a business that was for sale.
All right.
So we got talking with him, and he was advising us on what we could do with my father-in-law and the sort of technologies and things. And we just got talking, and I'm always looking for different business ideas and things like that. And we got talking about the fact that his business was up for sale. And one thing led to another, and then we ended up buying his business. Martin is well into retirement age, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying that. He was sort of winding down. On this side of it, he's still doing his expert witness, and he's still working 15 hours a day. I mean, the guy is, from running a business perspective, he's definitely someone I've got an awful lot of respect for. And we've taken on this business. So it was something that we needed to understand from a personal perspective that's now flowed into a business and something that's become a bit of a passion. And we learned a lot through that journey with my father-in-law, and we now realize we have still got so far to go.
Yeah, no, really interesting. So and I think had you bought a business before, or was this the first time you'd bought a business?
So I've done a lot of acquisitions before in my career when I was working for large organizations. Okay. So throughout my career, I've always worked for really big companies, top 500 type. And as part of business development and sales, being part of that acquisition cycle was always a key part of my role. And, when I was looking at buying the business myself, I thought, I've done this, we've bought incredibly large businesses worth millions. Yeah. How difficult can it be? And oh my goodness, wasn't it different?
Yeah. So let's explore that, because I think there's quite a lot of us probably listening that have thought about maybe buying another company. And of course, at a certain point in our growth, our scaling up journey anyway, it might become relevant to start considering the idea of acquisitions. So let's explore that. What did you find that was so different, or let's see what the challenges were?
Yeah, well, previously, when I was dealing with a larger company, we had commercial teams, we had lawyers, I had people around me that were looking at the technical capabilities, and things like accountants and things on tap that you could just talk to and go, I've been told this is what's in the book. Does this make sense? Am I leading into something that could be giving me quite large liabilities? And also the maturity of Martin. He hadn't sold a business before. His business setup was quite different in the sense of we were buying a limited company, although the limited company had laid dormant and he was trading as a sole trader, and he'd done it literally just to maintain the brand.
Right.
And that came with a lot of little nuances, such as, I want to see your entire sales book. I want to understand who you're dealing with. What am I buying? And he wouldn't let us see that, because it was kind of, well, I've got no protection. Well, I kind of need to understand, what the pipeline is. I need to understand what elements of the business, because Adapt IT was just one of the brands. He also owned RSI Shop, which was for repetitive strain injury. Okay. So even though, very similar, completely different audiences and things. And of course, every time you need to get hold of somebody for commercial support, you were at the whim of the solicitors, which previously I had somebody working with me. So, but I did find things that I didn't understand. So, it was kind of, we were talking about laying out exactly what it was we were buying, and, what would happen after we bought it with support and things like that. I mean, we're really lucky in the sense we weren't really leveraging anything. So it was a simple, I'm going to buy everything. There was no kind of earnouts or anything like that. But just getting down to the point where the solicitors were happy with the exact detail on what you were buying. And when you said, oh, I'm buying a brand, what did that mean? Being able to define everything to the point that the solicitors were happy that there was no liabilities there. There was a part of the business that Martin was maintaining from a consultancy perspective, and that was quite troublesome, anti-competition laws and things like that, protecting us and protecting him. And one thing that the solicitors struggled with was both Martin and myself were very laissez-faire about it. Maybe I trusted him and he trusted me too much. I don't know, but it was kind of, oh, don't worry about it. It'll come out in the wash. And the solicitors pulling out their hair are going, look, this will come out in the loss when you get a lawsuit because he's done something. And it was kind of, oh, right. So, the reliance on our solicitors and accountants and the level of reliance we needed actually was quite a surprise for us. So, almost to the extent of buying or paying him for the business was almost the smaller bill.
Okay.
And then there was things with regards to stock. So, the stock was separate, and we needed to understand. And of course, we were relying on him to tell us whether or not we should have the stock, which is kind of the wrong way round, because it's in his benefit to sell that. So there was a lot of learning, a lot of working with him, a lot of going through, well, let's take this client, for instance. What did they buy? What did they use? To be able to work that out. So the purchasing of the business was quite interesting, and it still took us about 5 months, whereas we thought it would only take a sort of few weeks. And I think that was the immaturity of doing this for ourselves, because I thought, well, done multi-million-pound deals in a year. We're tiny. It's only going to take a few weeks, and that was far from the truth.
And what were the things that took the time then? Was it that due diligence of going backwards and forwards with the solicitors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were so many things that popped up within the commercials. So there was liability clauses was something of that needed a lot of consideration. So you could take insurances out and things for that, but getting the wording right. And there was, it was a battle of the lawyers at one point, because, mine wanted unlimited liability, which you couldn't really do. Yeah. And theirs obviously didn't. And I was quite happy to go with, well, we'll go with liabilities up to the value of the company. And it was kind of, well, you're dealing with vulnerable people, and it's kind of, oh, really? But in the end, the lawyers worked something out. Some insurances were put in place and things like that. And we're kind of glad that we did. Not that we ever think there would be, but when you see negligence cases and things, even if it's just for IT, it can be a big thing. So that was probably the scariest part for us.
Okay. Yeah. And how did you go about? I mean, you mentioned about the actual cost of the business perhaps being secondary in a way to the cost of the legal fees, but how did you go about agreeing and deciding on what basis to value the business that you were buying?
We were really lucky in the sense that Martin was paying an agent to do that. Okay. So with regards to that, I got a really detailed pack around, right, this is what the business was turning over. This is what we think the goodwill is. This is how it matches up against other businesses. And again, we did our own research to have a look, well, what's out there? What are we actually buying? And things like that. And that enabled us to then be able to agree what we were going to pay.
And did it essentially come down to effectively a multiple of either turnover or EBITDA? Do you recall?
It was a multiple of turnover. Yeah, it was a multiple of turnover, and that seemed the easiest way of doing it. I mean, it was a very small deal anyway. We were talking tens of thousands rather than hundreds of thousands. So, okay. A lot of it was really down to what do we think the value was in the current clients, which actually have turned out very well for us. But really, there was a lot of things that Martin wasn't doing. So even though he declared himself as not much of a businessman, he was really. I mean, he's been running a successful business for near on 20 years. But, he wasn't doing the service management piece. He was very much kind of somebody, he would give an assessment, he'd provide them the equipment, and then they would do it themselves. Whereas we had much bigger ideas over the past couple of years. There's been a lot more drive in the marketplace with inclusivity. So, we could see what we were getting and the value of having a well-positioned brand, albeit all in the East Coast, because he was from the sort of Bournemouth area. But, that had a lot of value to us. So okay. we were happy with the deal in the end.
And just for our listeners thinking about it, can you give us a feel for that multiple in terms of turnover? Are we talking 1 times or several times the turnover?
It was 1.5 times.
Yeah. Okay. So in that ballpark. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. Good. Absolutely.
And it sounds like you did that all as a upfront, no earn out to go with that.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we did discuss earnout in the sense of actually keeping him on board and having part of the business would have a substantial gain for us. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to do that personally, simply because where he was in his life cycle, etc. However, it's worked out really well. Because we have got him on retainer. He is available. He's still very passionate about this. I have to say, at times it's frustrating because you can tell that he still sees it as his business. Mm-hmm. So he does like to help, let's say, with some of the things, and he still does bring business our way. But not having on earn out did work really well in this instance. But it's definitely something that we plan on doing in the future. And of course, when you start looking at organizations that are considerably more money, an earn out and being able to agree, a certain amount up front, maintaining the key people within the business and then paying them out as the business earns money is definitely something that we'll be looking at. And that's something that our accountants, so one of the biggest changes for us is we had to change our accountants. Because my other business is very much based on manpower consultancy. Right. Whereas we had an accountant that, that absolutely was their expertise. Okay. But business structures, building multiple businesses, buying businesses we had to find a specialist solicitor, a specialist accountant, that could do that for us. I mean, one thing that might be interesting for the listeners actually is we had one company already, Track Defence Limited, which specialises in cybersecurity, and the plan was to buy Adept IT and have it as a sister company to Track Defence.
Okay.
Through discussions with our legal advisors and with our accountants, they said that that was actually a bad idea. And the reason for that is if something happened to Track Defence or something happened to Adept IT, you could potentially lose both entities.
Right.
So what they advised is we set up a holdings company that actually owned both businesses. And that had multiple benefits. One, it meant that all core assets associated, so if we were to buy buildings or something like that, could belong to the holdings company. So in the future, if we sold out, you know, we'd still have an income with regards to that. But more importantly, if something went wrong with Track or went wrong with Adapt, or we wanted to sell one, from a legal and financial standpoint, it's a lot easier to do. Because all of the shares are owned by Track Defence Holdings, which makes it a very easier split, because you can go, well, we're going to sell Adept IT as a going concern, and we're just selling shares which Track Defence Holdings earn, rather than trying to, well, this belongs to Track Defence, this belongs to Adept IT. It just makes it a lot more streamlined in the future, which was something that I hadn't considered. And actually, I found very, very useful from a learning standpoint.
Very good. No, good piece of advice. And what other things, you know, if you were to look back at it, what things maybe either surprised you, or that given the chance to do it again, that you might do differently? I
wouldn't rush into it so quickly. We definitely, this looks like an opportunity, go. And I know you've got to grab opportunities as they come. But I do feel that with the maturity of myself and my wife within this sort of area of doing it ourselves, there's a lot of things that maybe we should have known. Understanding more about the marketplace you're going into, because it is very much different from the other business. Understanding a little bit more from the financial standpoint. So, you know, having an accountant that is absolutely able to advise you on business acquisition and mergers helps, because they have the right language, they can deal with the other accountants and they know what to ask, whereas the accountants we had didn't know the right questions, and neither did we. So, you know, that could have been quite risky for us. And also, you know, the different options that were open to us. I mean, it's lucky that I'd been involved in mergers and acquisitions previously, but just the different buying strategies. You know, we're currently looking at what we can do next. In a lot of businesses, you don't actually need to put money down. There are ways of being able to take over businesses, and you know, I'm a person that likes watching YouTube and what people talk about business and stuff like that. But you know, there are a lot of people out there that actually just want somebody to take over the business because they want to retire or things like that. And the accountants can absolutely advise you on how you go about it. And, you know, there are also accountants that, as a side, they do acquisitions and, you know, support other businesses. And they can be a really good way of being introduced to businesses that are in that situation. So, you know, this is a lot of things that we've learned on way that actually for the next time, which I hope there will be, will definitely help us make it a little bit more streamlined and not so scary.
Yeah, and definitely making sure you've got the right professional people in your corner, I think is a really good takeaway from this.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you go about funding the acquisition? Did that come from the existing business, or how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so we're really lucky in the sense that Track Defence is well grounded. It's been going since 2017. It was quite cash rich from that perspective, so Track Defence was able to fund the whole lot.
Very good, excellent. So since that time, then what have you learned? What challenges have you faced, and what have you learned since June of last year, since it became your baby, your business?
Yeah, so a lot of it has been about the industry, expectations, how reliant the client is on their suppliers, which is a lot more than my previous business.
Yeah.
So it really is a lot more hand holding. And just the general thing of running a business that relies on e-commerce as well. Never done anything like that where I've needed to use, social media for marketing, Google ads, relying more on cold calling and engaging with organizations, whereas previously in cybersecurity, I'm known. So, people would come to me or whatever. So that whole piece, and just putting in place the strategy planning, and the support that you, Louise, and Granger have provided within BizSmart with creating a 90-day plan, how that fits into a 3-year strategy, and more importantly, trying to think about, where do you want to go with this business? What exactly is it going to be? Is it going to be a lifestyle business? Are you looking to build this to become, a larger concern so you can retire on it? What is it? And those kind of things we'd never done before. And that's been quite challenging. And, with regards to bringing in my wife, Jane, into the business, who hasn't got that business experience, and is very more transactional in the way that she approaches things, and then bringing Jess in, who, is at the very start of her career. I think, sitting back as a leader, being able to go, oh, we need to generate this part of the 90-day plan, just go and do it. And then, a couple of days later, how are you getting on? Well, I didn't have a clue what you were talking about, Simon, let alone, do a thing like that. That has been a learning curve, because I'm used to working in a leadership role where I've got very highly skilled, highly competent people. And I don't mean that in a bad way against Jess and Jane, because they are really, really good. But they're not at that level of skills that I'm used to dealing with. Mm-hmm. And for me as a leader, that's been quite a wake-up call, being able to transfer my knowledge across to Jess, and, being able to bring her up to speed as we're doing things, and building her confidence. And that's one thing, I'm quite an extrovert. So, talking to people and just generally me is what I'm all about, and dealing with people that are actually, they may not be introverted, but that's where she is within her career, and being able to go, you're doing really well, and building that confidence and giving things that are a stretch, but are not confidence destroying. Because I find that if you give somebody something that is beyond actually what they're capable of, that can also damage their morale and what they think about themselves, and that has been a real steep learning curve for me. So yeah, no, that's been the biggest thing. Marketing, dealing with a different marketplace. So I'm dealing a lot more with procurement officers now, who don't necessarily understand what it is they're buying.
Okay.
So, being able to bring them on that journey. Why is it important to deal with somebody like us rather than an Amazon, for instance? And, I think that's one thing that all businesses have got to be, especially if they sell products now, that, the answer is Amazon. Now, what's the question, kind of thing. So, we do have a lot of, with regards to, yeah, well, we provide a complete service. You know, you're not just getting a product, you're getting a team to support that product through life. You know, and it's not about you making that decision on what's best. And, you know, we've spoken to a lot of people where they've spent a considerable amount of money to then find it's not right for them. So, you know, the ability to be able to talk to somebody that's going to show you what's available, being able to try for a decent amount of time rather than your 14-day money back guarantee kind of thing is very much what we're looking at. And then selling on social media. You know, we all use Facebook and Twitter and things to go, oh, you know, I'm out with the family today, but actually using it as a sales medium to get to your target audience. One thing that we're trying to do in our rocks, so one of the big things that we're trying to do as a business is brand awareness. Mm-hmm. Now we've curtailed that to the UK because I know, you know, the global world of the internet, but we're well known in parts of the UK, but certainly not all of it. So using platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter to get our brand out there, using our suppliers and saying, look, we want to do joint campaigns with you where we go, you know, Adapt IT, we use Text Help, for instance, or we use Dolphin Software, which is another great Worcestershire-based company for assistive software. And, you know, them approaching their community and their stakeholders and going, look, there are people out there that build our capabilities into complete solutions and can help you with other things. It's just something we've not done before. And then we've had the minefield of language. You know, what can you say? Is using the term disabled an appropriate word to use?
Interesting.
You know, you hear the term special needs. Well, the stuff we provide isn't about a special need. It's about something that everybody needs is IT. You know, you using Facebook isn't a special need. It's something that we're used to do every day. So, you know, we can upset people by just simple language.
Yeah.
And not meaning anything by it, but, you know, just the way it comes across. And, you know, that has been something that we've had to be very careful of, not necessarily coming from this industry or how their language has built.
I would imagine absolutely one poor choice of word and you can undo a lot of the good that you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what have you found from a marketing point of view then? What have you found that is working for you? I
was really surprised at how easy it is to start building a community.
Okay.
And granted, it's powered by the likes of Facebook and things, and the community's already there, but people are always interested about what's out there, what people are doing. And we get, you know, through Reddit and LinkedIn, people are always putting their ideas in. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. I've been doing this and things like that. And that's really good. I have to say, we're kind of building ourselves up to the video messaging thing.
Yeah.
We haven't quite got to that yet. You know, chat radio is good. It doesn't seem so scary, but you know, doing things that are educational. It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is, because people get to know you, they get to see you, they get to hear about things they're interested in. And, you know, never underestimate a meme or a joke or something like that. I mean, Jess, you know, being somewhat younger than I am, she's so all over that. And she'll put something, there'll be a meme of the week or whatever, and she'll put an Adapt IT spin on it. And the amount of traffic we get just from that has been really good. But the thing that we've learned, it has to be constant. You can't put out a tweet or a Facebook page or a LinkedIn thing once every month, because it just doesn't work. It's got to be constant. It's got to be every few days. There's got to be something new, and you've got to be approaching something different. And I'm not going to say that we've quite got that right yet, because we're still waiting for rebranding and a new website. So we're kind of holding off a little bit, but really excited about using that method moving forwards, because we've got so many fresh ideas.
So with the groups and the communities, are you going in and taking part in existing groups and communities where they're asking questions about the kind of things that you might be able to help with? Or are you developing your own communities where you're encouraging people to come in and into your environment?
Yeah, at the moment we're using existing communities. So that tends to help. Obviously, there are specific rules in these communities. You're not allowed to do direct sales and things. It is about helping people and things like that. And the reason that we've kind of approached it that way is, obviously, we've talked about language and things like that. But what is it that we've got that people are interested in and is going to be our niche? And, we've talked about the services that we provide and things like that, but what elements within each of those services are going to be of interest? So we're kind of using these forums and the places that we're going as an area to learn. So we're engaging as part of the community. We're putting in, have you thought about this? We've used this in the past and things like that. Whereas we're starting to get our ideas on what is our niche, where are we going to go, what audience are we going to target? Because when we talk about disabilities and things like that, it's a massive marketplace, and there's so many different stakeholders, from the medical care industry and the specialists there, to carers, to the people that have got the disabilities themselves. And what is going to be our specific target audience? And I don't think we've quite got that yet, to the point where we want to start something and put the effort in. And I think we're very busy trying to deal with our big problems at the moment. And we're not quite ready to make that one of our rocks, where we're going to focus on building our own community and, everything that goes with that.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. So you mentioned before about working out where you want to go with the business. So, a question I like to ask everybody at this sort of stage is if we're having this discussion on ScaleUp Radio in 5 years' time, what would you say has to have happened for you to consider those 5 years a success?
Yeah. Get bigger. I mean, whichever way we look at it, it's always about the bottom line. However, it would be great to get to a team size of 10. Okay. I think the discussions with regards to, you've reached a new level and bridging the gap, very much we want to try and do that. We really want to get to the point where we've expanded our training capability. At the moment, we've got one full-time trainer. We're looking at extending that over the next year or so. But I think that's where we add value, because, buying a software package, it's really expensive. Some of these packages are a couple of £1,000. So, we mustn't underestimate what that means to a person. But being able to use it properly, and, that so many people will spend an hour or two with them, showing them the ropes, giving them that detail as that sort of service wrap. And it really does revolutionize the way that they're able to do things. And we get a lot of joy when you see people come back and go, thank you. That training we had has really opened our eyes to the power of what else we can be doing with the things that we've purchased. And in the long run, it does save them money, because they get to maximize what they've got rather than just continuously buying new technology and new things. So that's good. And Yeah, the assessment side as well. I mean, that's something that we generally don't do much of at the moment. We have to rely on Martin to do that, and he is absolutely the expert in that. And, you know, we've got a lot of learning to do before that, but that's going to be a core staple as well, helping people understand. And that's why we got into it from the beginning, you know, with Jane's dad. We just didn't know what we didn't know. So for people to have that one-stop shop where they can pick up the phone and go, look, we've got these conditions, what can we do, and be able to help people. You know, it's really nice, because in the cyber world, people tend to go, thanks very much, you've applied this firewall, you know, and that's the last you hear from people. But with regards to this, we've been sent photographs of the people, you know, using the equipment we've provided and the joy it brings them, and we want to do more of that, because there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that.
No, that's excellent. I can feel the passion and the inspiration coming through from you for that, which is brilliant. So one or two questions before we wrap up. I'd like to ask everybody, really, but you know, what are there any books or resources that you would recommend to other people to listen to? Things that maybe inspire you or give you some great information.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it's just by thing, but the book by Lencioni, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Okay.
I absolutely love that book. And the reason why I like that book is it's not like a standard business book. It's a story.
Okay.
That takes you through a specific situation with a large business board. Business is having troubles, a CEO has been brought in to solve it, and it's her journey of turning the board into a functional team. So absolutely, that book is a great read. And, you know, if you're trying to build a team and you want to know the sort of things that you want to instill as a culture, a board level or a leadership level, that book is really really
excellent.
Good.
And it applies regardless, really, of the size of team, doesn't it? You don't have to be talking about big teams here. It works very much relevant for small teams as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the learning that I'm using now absolutely fits what we're working. Also, I bought a book that's published by Thorogood called Working Smarter. Getting more done with less effort, time and stress. Now, again, this is, you can't see the book, but it's by a guy called Graham Roberts Phelps. And it's just some simple tasks that, you know, when you read them, you go, that's common sense, isn't it? And then you ask yourself, well, if it's common sense, why aren't you doing it? And it just runs through daily and weekly schedules of things that you can do as an individual, just to make life a little bit easier. It talks a lot about lists. Now, I'm hopeless with lists. Honestly, I have got lists as far as the eye can see, and all that happens is they get bigger. And nothing, and it doesn't matter whether I use electronic, but he has some really simple tips with regards to lists are good, but actually don't keep adding.
Yeah. Just
take the few things that you're going to do on the day and, you know, focus on those. And if something is important enough, it will get to that top 5 at some point.
Yeah, that sounds similar to I think it's Warren Buffett that used to that really talks about that. Is essentially you make your list of 20 things or whatever else, but then decide what the top 1, but certainly the top 3 are, and then actually just ignore the other 17. You just focus on those 3, and then the next day you do the same again. It might be that some of those 17 have come to the top again, but instead of worrying about all 20, you just focus on a few things. Very good. And are there any particular apps? I mean, obviously in your field you've got specialist apps and services that you would provide for your clients, but are there any particular apps that you would recommend to other people that you found particularly useful?
Yeah, okay. So there's an application called Text Help Read and Write. Now it's been developed for people that have, dyslexia, but also for visually impaired people. However, we use it a lot in our daily lives because it's really good, because it allows you to scan something in and it reads it back to you. And the ability to be able to take different text, and it enables you to put notes in voice and things like that. And for sharing information backwards and forwards, actually, we've been finding it really good from a productivity perspective.
Sounds great. So that's text help read and write.
Yes.
Excellent. Very good. Well, we'll make a note of that in the show notes. So fantastic. Simon, I've really, really enjoyed talking with you today. I think we've probably just come to the point where we should wrap it up to protect your time. So thank you very much indeed for that. If people would like to get hold of you or Adept IT, what's the best way for them to do that, Simon?
Yep. So we've got Adept IT Online. That's at Adept IT Online, which is our Twitter handle.
Okay.
And we've also got our website, www.adaptit.co.uk. And on there, we've got a lot of useful information with regards to different IT systems and how they fit different capability needs.
Fantastic. Simon, thank you very much for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today.
Thanks very much, Kevin.
Don't forget to take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk to access a great range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey. So that's bizsmarts.co.uk, which is bizsmarts.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.